Shocking discovery courtesy of the Ancient Word series. Larger than the Da Vinci Code. The Great Deception. In ancient days and even in modern times, out of fear the truth hath been kept hidden and unrevealed, and yet the time has come, that all must know, and have the option, to choose for themselves what is truth. What is the Great Deception and larger than the Da Vinci Code? The greatest farce and deception ever known to mankind Romanized Christianity, what today is known as Christianity. Ancient Rome gave to the world their version of Christianity, created their compilation, and called it Scripture, the Bible, and has taught, and are teaching their false and corrupt teachings throughout the earth, that hath negatively impacted humanity throughout its inception. These are not baseless accusations presented, is the concrete proof and evidence that hath been present and before mankind, and yet no one never questioned, nor attested to, that which was presented. An easy search of the New Testament using the search word Rome will result in 9 references to the term. Upon completion of your readings of the text you will make a shocking discovery. What is the shocking discovery? That Peter never traveled to Rome. If Peter never traveled to Rome for the New Testament, then Peter was never the first pope of Rome. Because Peter never traveled to Rome, and was never the first pope of Rome, he did not pass on the keys of the kingdom church given to him by Christ to Linus, a Tuscan Italian citizen of Rome and the second pope of Rome. Also, please research any of the New Testament versions for Rome and Peter. You will discover that Peter never was imprisoned in Rome, for he never traveled there. Again, if Peter never traveled to Rome, he was never the first pope, and he never passed keys to Linus. Peter lived in Jerusalem, and he is not buried at the Vatican. Secondly, who was Paul? Paul was not of the house of Israel, nor was he a Hebrew. Paul was Turkish, born in Tarsus, Greece, and it was he that was imprisoned in Rome, not Peter. See Acts, chapter 28, verse 14, 2 Timothy, chapter 1, verses 1 through 17, Romans, chapter 1, verses 1 through 15. Again, Peter never went to Rome, nor did he ever teach there, it was Paul. Thirdly, Mark and Luke were not disciples of Christ as per the disciples listed in the New Testament reference. Book of Matthew, chapter 10, verses 1 through 6. The disciples not listed above are Mark, Luke, Timothy, Paul, Titus, James, brother of Christ, Philemon. The same is written in Mark, chapter 3, verses 14 through 19. Romanized Christianity, that is Catholicism, is based upon the 4 canonized Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke and John. Of the 4, Mark and Luke, 2 non-disciples as per Matthew chapter 10, verses 1 through 6, Mark chapter 3, verses 14 through 9, and Luke chapter 6, verses 13 through 16. Paul the corrupter and non-saint. Who first used the term saint, and where is it written, that Yahweh gave permission to make saints of dead humans? Paul was first to use the term, and God never gave such a commandment. Paul, the author of Romans, 1 Corinthians, 2 Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, 1 Thessalonians, 2 Thessalonians, 1 Timothy, 2 Timothy, Philemon, Philippians. These chapters alone were derived from various parts of the Gospel of Peace and the Gospel of the Holy 12. Paul issued the laws for marriage. Paul issued the law that it was okay to eat unclean meat. Paul never met Peter. Peter lived and died decades before Paul. To the Catholic Encyclopedia. From St. Paul himself we know that he was born at Tarsus in Cilicia. Acts chapter 21 verse 39, of a father who was a Roman citizen. Acts chapter 22 verses 26 through 28, of a family in which piety was hereditary. 2 Timothy chapter 1 verse 3, and which was much attached to Pharisaic traditions and observances. Philippians chapter 3 verses 5 through 6. However, in the Acts of the Apostles authored by him, he is referenced as a Jew visiting and speaking at synagogues. Please note that of the New Testament references, Paul is the author of them all. Question: why and who authorized the teachings of these false doctrines as the words of God? The words of Christ? The answer: Romanized Christianity, Catholicism, that is modern-day Christianity. Throughout the planet humankind hath been divided by these teachings of confusion, half-truths, lies, darkness and bitterness. The day is nigh that you must choose and decide for yourselves what is truth. However, you cannot assume that the church leaders are honest and truthful. For the establishing of St. Paul, his teachings, the non-disciples declared disciples of Christ by Paul, Mark and Luke. Of the canonized fiction, the New Testament displays that you cannot. This was a scheme, a fraudulent scam committed against humanity. Final word. Take a close look at the globes. These are placed throughout the planet. Berkeley, California. New York City. The Vatican. The Vatican? Simple objects of art, you say? Take a closer look. They represent the earth and their common goal ever before them. What is that common goal? To utterly ruin and destroy God's creation and all that inhabit it. In Wisdom, Peace and Love, Reverend Melissa Smith.